20 years ago, a seed was planted and cared for. We painstakingly nurtured it and weathered it against adversity until one day it blossomed and the fruits of our labor began to show. Today, millions have learned, shared, and been inspired by what our community has produced. We proudly serve 21 million users from 204 countries in 2019. Through our 85,000 technical articles, code samples, and videos, our 450,000 forum questions, and our highly anticipated conferences and events featuring keynote panels, live streams, and industry experts and influencers, we recognize and reward members for their dedication to the community. Through content contributions and mentorships, we ranked number 2,620 in the world with a reach of millions across our social media channels. Thanks to you, our global community of software and data developers grows stronger each day. For more information, visit us at CSharpCorner.com.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Growth Mindset Weekly Live Show. My name is Mahesh Chand. I'm a founder of CSharpCorner. I am speaking here. I'm joining you from Philadelphia. It's a little colder today. This morning we have a little chill wind, but looks like summer is coming slowly, and definitely see some flowers, some leaves outside. So it's getting better. I see COVID cases are getting better also around the globe. At least in the US, we are getting a lot more vaccines. So hopefully, some of you guys are already lined up joining us from different places, get vaccine. So hopefully we'll be able to open and start meeting again in a couple of months. Everybody who is joining us this show, if you're joining us first time, welcome to the show. If you are a regular, viewer, welcome back to the show. As we know, this show is it's every Friday noon Eastern time, and on this show we talk about growth mindset. We talk about things that are definitely not coding. We talk about how to get better at your work, personal, professional life. We also bring guests. Each show we have different guests. Let's talk about today. Simon, you want to just bring the slides? So today we have a guest, Bill Wolff. Bill Wolff is a community leader. We are going to have a more intro on the intro slide. If you're joining us from, looks like more and more people are joining us. Welcome to the show. I see good morning if you're joining us from the US. Good afternoon or good from Europe, and good evening from India and Asia region. As you all know, this show is all about you. Means if you have any questions, any kind of questions, feel free to post your comments. We take any questions in this show. And then if you think you like the show, it shows helping you, benefiting you, feel free to share this on social media. Let your friends know, coworkers know about the show. Each week we have different topic on this, and today's topic is community and leadership and much more in tech work. We have a great news today. CSharpCorner community, as a community, we partner with the Stratus platform. If you are not familiar with the Stratus platform, check it out, stratusplatform.com. Stratus is a blockchain solution for C# and .NET developers. So this partnership is actually going to bring more blockchain development on the platform. So what does that mean? What does that mean? If you are a C# .NET developer, you want to learn blockchain, we are going to work with the Stratus and other developers to bring content to CSharpCorner. So, and we are also going to launch a dedicated category on CSharpCorner just to learn Stratus. And I think in coming, there's a news already published. Check out this news. and this is going to being published on different platform and PR Newswire and other community other cryptocurrency and blockchain related websites as well. We are also going to announce Stratus certifications in coming months. We don't have exact time yet. And there's going to be also some sponsorships as well as hackathons and some more challenges coming up on blockchain. So definitely, if you are a somebody who like to learn new technologies, who want to get ahead of everybody, this is probably the best way to start learning Stratus, because first of all, it's all C#.NET based. You don't need to learn any new language if you are already C# developer, and it's easy to build. So just something to look forward to. And we're also going to have more on this. There's going to be more news and articles will be updated in coming weeks and months. So I'm looking forward to this partnership. I think there's a lot more to come in this. If you are joining us first time, you know that we have launched a new show on Saturdays. It's called CSharpCorner Town Hall. It's 10 a.m. Eastern every Saturday. In this show, we talked about CSharpCorner news. What are the new features and new activities we are bringing on CSharpCorner platform. So if you want to know what's coming on CSharpCorner in the next couple of months, what are the new things we're building, what are the features we are going to launch, join us tomorrow 10 a.m. Eastern. It's half an hour show. It's just more like a up to date with CSharpCorner. We are hiring C# and .NET developers. We are hiring Azure architects, blockchain developers. We are also looking for a community manager who can help us even manage more community activities. And we are also hiring a Unity developer. So if you or your friend or coworker or anybody is looking for a job, you want to change your job, you feel like you're not happy with this is going to be challenging work. All the work we are doing is very innovative. They're cutting edge. We are building cool stuff. So something, if you want to, just reach out to Simon or anybody on, contact us page or CSharpCorner social media channels. And now let's bring our guest today. Our guest today is Will Wolff. Will Wolff, introduction. He's a founder of Agility Systems. It's a software consulting firm here local in Philadelphia area. Will is a community leader. He's a founder of Philly.net user group, one of the largest and one of the oldest .NET user groups in this Philly area. I've been part of this. I've attended a lot of BigCon events through this Philly.net user group. Bill is also trainer, author, teacher, and he's also Microsoft MVP. So let's hear more from Bill, what else he does. Bill, good morning and welcome to the show.
How you doing, Mahesh?
All good, all good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well.
All right. Did you get your COVID vaccine yet?
Well, I got my first shot. I'm on Team Pfizer.
Wow, wow. Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's good news. I was reading yesterday that if you are vaccinated, not only you don't get it, you also don't spread it.
You don't yet? That's correct.
Yeah.
So everybody should do this in every country of the world.
Yep.
Even other planets, the ones we haven't reached out to yet.
Yep. So, Bill, welcome to the show, Growth Mindset. We have people joining us from around the globe. We have people joining us from North America, Europe, India. I did a little introduction. You want to add more to your background, what you do in day job. And then first half of the show is we'll talk about you with your community. We're going to talk about leadership and Philly.net and your MVP and all that. And then in the second half, we will open up more and we take questions from the audience.
All right. Right now, I'm an independent consultant. I do have a company name, Agility Systems, that has been in operation for 20 years. I call myself an enterprise consultant because I primarily work with very large companies, usually always in the Microsoft space. I'm either working with C#, ASP.NET, a Blazor, SQL, or Azure, usually one of those things. But I have a long storied history in the Microsoft space, especially in enterprise servers. So I understand a lot of things that are important to large companies like Azure, Active Directory, Windows Active Directory, firewalls. I work with System Center. I do a lot of analytics, and that
Oh,
is
hello. We got a new guest.
that is
What?
Lydia.
Lydia.
Say hi.
Nice. There you go. That's nice. You should bring Lydia back to the
She
show.
wants
again.
to get involved in everything. Yes.
Yes, yes.
But yes, so I offer unique value to my clients because I can come in and I can review code and write a little C# if I need to. I can debug and performance tune SQL queries. I can work with website analytics, troubleshoot. So I do a mix of things, and so I've been consulting like that before Mahesh was even born. So
That's great. That's great. So, while we are talking about consulting, let's just, how everybody's, what impact have you seen on your consulting and your work during this pandemic?
Well, in all honesty, I've increased my billables about, I'd say, 10 to 15% since the pandemic started, because I don't go on vacation. I work from home 100%, but a lot of the clients I work with, often there's much more work than anyone can ever finish. So since there's not a lot to do in the weekends, I just put a couple hours in every Saturday and Sunday. And so I've been doing that for the last 15 months or so. So that's been useful to me. And, nobody hates extra money. But I have not, even on my clients, I haven't seen people, out because of COVID, or I haven't seen people furloughed or let go. I have kids that are, around 30 years old. It's affected them because they don't work in the business I do. But, just in the computer world, it seems there's plenty to do.
Yeah. So yeah, for us, IT, if you have been working from home, it has not impacted at all. As you said, there's actually more work for us to do, which is a good thing. So Bill, while we're talking, you said one thing is that you've been working, for years and years as your own consulting, right? As a consultant, you got your own projects. So what is that one thing, if somebody who's watching us now and they want to kind of get into consulting, what they should do, so make sure they have, job all the time lined up for them? The biggest challenge with being your independent consultant is that you don't know how long your project is going to last, right? Sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's 2 years. So,
well, once you get into a position, you got to own it, and you got to work it and make sure everybody understands the value you bring to the company. You have to keep your eyes open for opportunities, volunteer to do extra projects that other, maybe employees don't want to do. And by doing that, the current contract I'm on now, I am in my 64th month there. So, it's pretty steady work. I got at least another 1 or 2 years there before they would even think of moving on from me.
yeah, and I think, yeah, go ahead.
Now, but the honest truth is that if you're good at this stuff and you have a very broad knowledge base, it's pretty easy to find work, because I get contacted constantly, people asking if I'm going to be free. But I would say, since I started contracting, which would have been Ooh, 42 years ago. How old were you, Mahesh?
I'm close. I'm 46.
Oh, you were born. Good.
Yeah, I was born before. Yeah, that.
Yeah. So since I started contracting, probably around, I think it was 42 years ago. I think I was out of work for 3 months in 42 years.
Wow, that's amazing. That's impressive.
And in all honesty, I probably, for most of that time, I averaged billing at least 50 hours a week.
Wow, wow. But
So,
we have to keep in mind is that work is not going to find you unless you work for it. Correct?
yes. So a couple very important recommendations.
Yep, that's exactly we want to hear it. So guys, if you're watching,
Um,
yeah,
there's
listen to this.
two
This is
areas
very,
I would stress. One
yep.
is community, and one is brokers. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Well, I wanna talk about the community first because that's how kind of we want to start. I also know you founded this community called Philly.net user group,
Yeah.
and it's one of the largest user group in the area. You have thousands of members there, and you also do two of the largest code camps, and also involved in several conferences. So I want to talk about this whole thing, your community part, what you do, why did you, and we'll break down from there. Like, what made you start your first user group?
I think we should go back in time, Mahesh.
Go ahead. Yeah, we are here to listen to you. Let's go to your story.
You're proud to be a community guy, and I sort of helped invent community.
Yes.
Back in the late 70s, early 80s, there were user groups. They didn't call them communities back then. We didn't have meetups. We had user group meetings.
Yeah.
And we actually got in a car and drove somewhere and talked to each other in person. And that's a wonderful way to learn.
Yeah.
But I remember being very involved in the Philadelphia Computer Society. And that was like 79 or 80, maybe around that time. And that was my first exposure to community and user groups. And I went there just, trying to learn. I was just another guy there. And I remember going into for a lot of your crowd, they probably won't remember some of this stuff. But we had an MS-DOS SIG. A SIG stands for Special Interest Group.
Okay.
So in Philadelphia Computer Society, we had a special interest group for Microsoft Disk Operating System. That's back when you used to boot your computer with a floppy disk. Look it up in a museum. All this stuff really happened.
Yeah.
Anyways, I remember going to these meetings, and people would like come in and ask questions, and I'm an avid reader, so I read a lot of the manuals back then. And a funny thing is, I was in these meetings and people would ask questions, and I would like say, "Oh, I know that one." It's like, here's how I would do that. And it took about maybe 3 months of that, where they basically asked me to run the SIG. And I remember I did a presentation. You know what the command prompt is? Well,
Yep.
I showed people how to change the color of the text in the command prompt. And they thought that was the greatest thing. and basically they anointed me the leader of the group. And I started, because of that, I started getting involved with the other leaders and learning how a group like a user group interacts with local businesses and with local talent. And this ties back to your question earlier about my work career. I would say that in 42 years, over 90% of the jobs that I've gotten have been through my involvement in community. So that's why I do user groups. Sure. It's a somewhat selfish motive, but I give a lot. I do a lot of talks. I organize events just like Mahesh does, but I basically do it because it keeps me in the, it gives me notoriety locally. And a good example, I'll often be brought in to interview for a contracting job. And I go in and I talk to the guy who's, the project manager or the architect, and they ask me all these tough technical questions. Of course, I try and pretend I know the answers. And then inevitably they take me around a walk around the floor to see who else works there. Well, almost every interview I go to, we walk out and everybody says, "Hi, Bill," because they know me from the user group.
Yes.
So when you go for an interview and 10 of the people you're going to be working with already know who you are, it's pretty easy to land the job.
Yeah. No, that's...
And you know who I am because I go to these meetings. Number one, I'm going to be like President Biden. Number one. Number two, I speak up at the meetings. I either ask questions or I answer questions. And number three, I identify all the other people at the meetings that know the answers. And if you know who those people are, if anything ever comes up at a client, you get on, well, we used to use this thing called a phone. But
like
today, I mean, Mahesh uses that silly Twitter thing. But you actually social message somebody to find out, like, hey, do you know what's going on with all these Exchange servers being attacked by hackers? And I know a guy that works with this all the time. So he can give me a good insight. Then I tell my client, and they think I'm smart. And all I did is told them what the other guy told me. So that's basically the heart of community and networking.
So no, that's great. That's great. I think one thing you have 2-3 things here is, I think, mentioned here is obviously, so 90+% of your work you got through community. So everybody who's watching us, it's community involvement is not just giving to the community. And you become a leader, people start knowing you, you automatically land up on the jobs, right? Most of the time, some people may be looking for, they're like, oh, I know Bill, he knows Exchange, let me call him, right? That's a good point here. One other point you mentioned here is that you ask questions or you answer questions.
Correct.
And that's an important part, and that's where some of our developers, they are introvert or they are shy or they don't speak up. That's something, I always try to encourage them. So if somebody's shy, somebody doesn't know what questions to ask, how would you kind of guide them or advise them what their first step should be?
Well, back in the day, they used to have these things called Toastmaster clubs. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I mean, I heard, yeah.
So a Toastmaster back in the 70s, 80s, the 60s, a Toastmasters club, you would go to a group and you would practice speaking to the rest of the people in the group. So you're learning to do presentations. You got to do that even today. Now, actually, today it's a lot easier because you can, get some cheap equipment or use your iPhone or whatever, and you can record a video and post it. But there's a little bit of a step from being able to talk to your phone and present technical information to actually sitting or standing in front of a group and presenting information. Because I've been at conferences where I've spoken to hundreds of people. Those skills are extremely important as a consultant because inevitably you're going to be, well, in the old days, you would go into a meeting room and meet with a lot of other very, technical managers. And if you can't explain your ideas to that where it makes sense to all of them, you're not going to get the work. You're not going to get paid. So you have to learn how to explain technical things to people that aren't necessarily as technically astute as you are. Inevitably, those are the business managers, the people that actually pay the consulting bills. So you gotta learn how to present, how to talk. Now, you can do that today. You can practice with, a service like this. This is called StreamYard, or you can use Zoom. But just get some of your friends and take turns and present to each other. And let them critique you and tell you where they thought you were making a mistake or where you could have been clearer. And whatever you do, don't say every third word and I'm not sure what to say next. But the way you learn that you're doing that stuff is by recording yourself and listening to it. So you got to practice presenting, because every chance you present is a possibility to win more lucrative work.
Okay, so that's another great tip. Everybody who's watching, that if you are a developer, not involved in community, definitely you got to get involved in community. It doesn't have to be in person these days because of COVID, or local user groups may not be active. You can get involved virtually right now. You can talk to your friends through these Zooms and StreamYard and all the Skype and everything else. And definitely you mentioned something, that ask about, what else, how you can improve. Critics is important, right? You cannot just talk to your friends and moms and they're saying, great job, great job. You have to talk to people who can really.
It has to be your peers.
It has to be your peers.
P-E-R-S.
Yep, it has to be peers or somebody who can really.
So Mahesh, I'll make a bold statement here.
Yep.
I bet you there are people on this session that know more about C# than I do. They can interface and they can, inherit and do all that stuff, and they can do their Lambda expressions much faster than I can.
Yeah.
I bet you I get paid more.
Because of these
communication skills, yes.
And leadership and community work.
Correct. Because I can explain. I work with very large websites right now. The company I'm at, we support maybe 2,000 websites, and we run websites for people like Pfizer, Amazon, this morning I was working on MasterCard. Yep. So I work on very, very large companies' websites. And you don't make mistakes. If something goes wrong, you have to be able to explain yourself very clearly, very fast. Because they don't let you work on production servers for Fortune 100 companies unless you can fix things really quick or explain things really quick.
Yep.
So, yep. So that's part of what you need to learn to make reasonable money. You also have to learn the technical stuff, and I'm completely self-taught over 42 years, to the point where oftentimes I got hired to teach other programmers. I used to do a lot of Microsoft certification training. I started one or two training schools. It was sort of fun to start them, but I hated the business side of it. Counting how many butts are in seats, things like that. And I've done a fair amount of writing. I've written documentation, I've written training manuals and things like that. So that's all part of what I see as communicating your technical knowledge, and helping people understand. I don't remember where I was going with that. But
so no, that's great. That's great. So I think the whole training and teaching and writing,
yep.
They kind of add to your communication skills, right? They kind of help big time. Actually, when I came from India, my English was pretty bad, and when more and more I wrote, and
better?
Yeah, not really, but I think so. But I wrote these books and I learned so many times. I had to read and write again and fix again. It kind of gets better, right? It gets better, at least better than what you were before. And again, it is all practice. But I was going to ask you this question, I say you were lucky because, first of all, your background was teaching and you're training and you're writing these certifications and then you are like, but some of these guys who just graduated and they start doing coding from day one, and all they do is sit and code and code and code and hardly interact with the clients or hardly go to user groups because they're under pressure. They're like, they got to drive this code.
And they think they know everything.
Yes. So they also think they get this big head, and some of us, we're like, I'm the genius, I'm the changing the world and all that. What is your advice to get out of that, code mode to, hey, get better, get communicated, get involved in community? What can they do with, within their company itself, right?
How would I convince somebody to not be so focused and introverted? I guess.
Can they start their own little user group within the company?
I think they should always have some other peers they should talk to. I guarantee they have buddies that they share code ideas with. And I guarantee that they're always trying to figure out whether they're getting a good enough rate for their work. And, how can I make more money? And you're not going to be awarded extreme amounts of money if you're going to be just sitting in a corner writing code. There are some rare cases of people that are just absolutely brilliant that they're worth doing that. And then they get hired by companies like Microsoft, and they make millions. But but the percentage of people that get that are about the same percentage that make it into the MBA and actually last more than 4 or 5 years. Very small number. So for most of us, it's just a day-to-day job, and if you want to keep your options open, you've got to be better at communicating. You've got to be able to search out who the decision makers are and convince them of your value. And, maybe your code is that good, but chances are, if you are not personable on a Teams or a Zoom meeting, the managers above you who inevitably control your review and your score and your whatever level you're in your company for salary wise, you have to convince them that there's more to you than just the technical side.
All right, great. That's good advice. That's definitely everybody who's joining us. Welcome to the show. Some few people joined, new people came. What we're going to do now is we are halfway there. We're going to take a 2-minute break. And after the second half, we have more questions. If you have any questions, let those questions keep coming. We'll pick some of the questions depending on the time. But today here we are talking in this growth mindset. We're talking to Bill Wolff. Bill is a user group leader, community leader. I would even say thought leader who innovated communities. And he's also a Microsoft MVP, which we are also going to talk about in the second half. What Microsoft MVP is, how you can become one, what are the advantages and disadvantages, and things like that. So anything else then we'll ask Bill more questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to pose those questions. We'll be right back after this 2-minute break.
Here at Mindcracker, we create artificial, virtual, and mixed reality games and apps, voice-enabled skills and apps, and intelligent apps, and integrate AI with IoT products. We offer advisory services for innovations and startups. We provide cloud and code security and performance services. We also offer AI/ML blockchain development, consulting, and training. Just visit www.mindcracker.us to make your dreams into a reality.
Hey guys! Can't believe we haven't seen each other since graduation in May. What's going on?
Not much. With the pandemic, I can't really do anything right now.
Me too. I mostly just stay at home, hang out with my dog, and watch the news.
I feel you. Have you guys been able to get jobs yet?
Funny that you ask. Gary and I actually have been working on something together.
Yeah, we came up with an idea for a startup that's an app that will help us stay active since we both have been sitting around so much during this quarantine.
That's genius. I could definitely use something like that. When are you guys launching it?
Well, that's the issue. We don't really know how to build it, so we're kind of stuck.
I know of this company that does startup advising if you guys are interested.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're called Mindcracker, and they'll help you validate your idea and connect you with angel investors and help you build everything from your product MVP to your technical team and even your go-to market planning and execution.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you know how we could get in touch with them?
Yeah, you can just visit their website, mindcracker.us.
That's awesome, May. Thanks. I'm excited to get started on this.
Of course. Good luck, guys, and let's talk soon.
Thanks, May.
All right, we are back here. Hey, what do you think about these our ads, Bill?
Very entertaining. If I ever come up with an idea for a silly app, I will call you.
That's it. Okay, great, awesome. So welcome back to the show. We are talking how today is all about community. How how Bill has built a one of the largest communities in the Philly area. Bill, before we go to the other topics, you want to tell our viewers more about Philly.net, how you started that, and what you do code camps, and if there's local people who they're watching it, how they can get involved with it.
All right. Well, going back to what I mentioned earlier, starting out 40 years ago with the Philadelphia Computer Society, that eventually turned into a number of different user groups that I was involved with. I was helped run the OS2 user group. That's a long time ago. And then I got really interested in database stuff. So I used to run the SQL Server users group in Philadelphia. That was probably in the 90s. And that's one of the best investments I ever made. I remember learning about this thing called SQL. And I even went as far, we named one of our cats Sequel.
Nice.
But back then, Microsoft didn't have SQL. So I actually learned it using Oracle. And I got a big heavy binder and learned how to do all the commands and the joins and all that. And then Microsoft eventually got involved with Ashton Tate, and I don't remember the other company, but they there was a threesome there, and they ended up taking SQL Server, taking the code from that partnership, and that turned into their product. And I've been doing SQL consulting for at least 30 plus years. In fact, most of my, I'd say 2/3 of my work is database oriented, not C# code. But, I write a lot of utilities. I write a lot of websites in C#. I've given up completely on JavaScript. I just have absolutely no patience for React and Angular anymore. I taught them for a couple of years. I tried to stay ahead of, I wanted to be an expert at SPA development. And I gave all that up about 3 years ago when I ran into Blazor. And that's the only way I make websites anymore.
Yeah.
If you haven't tried it, try it. It's just exceptional. Entire websites, all in C#. It's fun.
So that's another question I was leading to is what are you working on these days, like besides, SQL and C#, anything new?
Well,
It looks like Blazor. Yeah.
My main focus at the client, we do a lot of human resource websites. These are very complex websites with hundreds or thousands of pages. And every page has sections of the page that are security, what they call audiences, that only certain people in certain groups in the company see that content. So you might have some blocks of content for managers, some for human resource people, some for employees in Mexico, some for people in North America. And all of that is entirely database driven. So in the old days, at the company I'm at, that was all done in SharePoint. Now it's actually done in a custom variant of .NET Nuke, heavily customized. It's all C# microservice stuff, but behind it, it's all SQL Server. So most of my work is moving content from one environment to another. So what I do is I go in and study all of the database schemas, come up with either SQL code, store procedures, or more likely C# console utilities to migrate data from one platform to another. And as I said, we're managing hundreds and hundreds of these websites. So I'll often take data that was in a SharePoint site, suck the data out into a database, run a bunch of queries, take the HTML, play with it a little bit, and then write it into another content database. And of course, as you can imagine, all this stuff is being moved to the cloud. So I'm also working with Azure SQL and Cosmos DB. So, it's a lot of understanding database schemas, indexing, data types, and then using C# as the sort of the magic sauce to grab everything out of one area and put it in another.
No, that's great. And looks like then, I know Blazor is, kind of growing in every, web, ASP.NET developer you talk to these days. They're kind of looking into Blazor or building the Blazor. What is your thought on Blazor? And you think the ASP.NET developers who are watching us, they should start looking into there?
Steve Sanderson is my favorite developer of all time. And if you don't know who he is, he invented Knockout.js. He invented Blazor. He got hired by Microsoft many years ago. He worked on a lot of the what we know as the Azure portal. He helped architect that. But he is the technical architect that put a lot of these ideas together. So he works with a manager, Dan Roth, and the stuff that they came up with is just phenomenal. And you can basically make anything in Blazor now that you can make in React or Angular. And then it becomes just a coding style preference. If you're happy working in Angular with hundreds and hundreds or thousands of little files and, putting together your web packages and, trying to optimize all that, or if you just want to have strongly typed C# everywhere and write a minimal amount of code, you get stuff done much faster.
In classes and have partial classes and,
you can
manage and all that.
You can do all that, but you'd be surprised how little code you have to write to get things done in Blazor because of the underlying C# and .NET ecosystem. It's really easy. I'm not a big fan of Entity Framework. I use a micro ORM called Dapper, but that is my ticket into all the database access. And then I get all that stuff out, and I either keep that in an IEnumerable or a list, and then I basically bind that with components that I wrote or third-party products that I use in Blazor, and I can go out and get a couple thousand rows and show them in a ridiculously complex grid in a half a second, and that keeps the project managers and the people that pay the bills very happy. And
that's great. Yeah.
And of course, so instead of them having to ask me to do custom queries all the time, I basically build a system where I display all the content data to them in different grids, and all the grids have Excel export. And it's actually very clever. You can actually pick which columns you want. You can do all the sorting, and then you press a button. It just makes a spreadsheet. And,
and I believe managers are happy as long as they see Excel export, right?
You betcha.
They love that.
Office integration is really important in enterprise consulting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So let's
But
take one question.
you were asked
Yeah.
about Philly.net.
Yes.
When Microsoft announced .net a little over 20 years ago, I decided to take what I back then called the Philadelphia Back Office Users Group, and that was
Okay.
actually a
Okay.
Microsoft product. So Microsoft had NT Server, they had SQL Server, they had System Center, Exchange, they had the I don't remember the names of all of them anymore. They had one that does XML translations, but they had all of these, server products. And since I was fluent in all of those, I basically had a user group in Philadelphia where we talked about how you integrate Microsoft back office server products. This predated the world of the cloud and Azure. And when Microsoft announced .NET, I said, well, I really like the coding stuff. I'm going to pass the back office stuff off to other user group leaders, and I'm going to start a .NET user group, and I called that Philly.net. And that we'd been in business for 20 years, probably had 10, 15 meetings a month for that many years. And I started doing code camps around 2005. That was just a big full day event. And we used to get crowds of, 500, 700, depending on what the space would fill. Very popular. And I got to know an awful lot of people, both the speakers and the attendees. As time went on, .NET, .NET still exists, but it became more of an umbrella of anything that .NET touched, which included Angular, React, because you use those on the client side for a .NET, ASP.NET backend website. I did a lot of sessions on SQL and then later on Azure and Cosmos DB because that's what people want to connect to from their .NET applications. So it's sort of an umbrella organization now that touches on a lot of things, DevOps, GitHub, all of those kinds of topics that are important to people probably that are on this call. We're still doing in-person meetings up until last March. And then, of course, the pandemic put the kibosh on that. So we have not had an in-person meeting since I think it was last March. And Mahesh was involved in that. One of his sponsors, Stratus, I remember them giving a talk. That was either last February or March. And that was the last one we had. And then we started doing virtual meetings using Teams. And I'm partnering with Microsoft. They let us into a beta program where we could use Teams to run our user group. And we've had reasonable results with that. We've actually had one virtual code camp where we had about 60 sessions over 2 days. If you follow us on meetup.com, just search for Philly.net, spell it out, Philly, DOTNET. And then as part of, as things have changed away from in-person meetings to more videos and, streaming like this, we started about 3 years ago recording all our meetings. And we have a YouTube channel, and I think that's Philly-NET. But there you go. Thank you, whoever posted that. But our YouTube channel probably has 100 or 200 recordings of meetings that we've had over the last 3 years. Some from code camps, some from our monthly meetings. We have monthly hands-on labs where we try and convince people to actually follow along. We go slower, show them what to type, what to look for. So it's been a good experience. I've met a lot of good people through Philly.net, and all of this has allowed me to get rewarded by Microsoft as a most valuable professional, an MVP. I was designated an MVP I think it was 18 years ago. And it was not because I was the smartest programmer. It was because I was really good at running community events and communicating with people. And that's really what the MVP brand is about, being able to take and evangelize what Microsoft is building and get it out to, in my case, my focus is corporate developers.
And with that topic, what is the main benefit for being MVP? Right? Besides, you are a community person, you are kind of evangelizing Microsoft. What do you get out of it?
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of people that are like, I wish I was an MVP.
Yes.
Mahesh still wishes that. But the honest truth is that it isn't as wonderful an award as it used to be. When I started, there were not very many of them, and you got a lot of really good benefits. You got a license to, back then they used to call it MSDN. You got like $150 in store credits. They flew you to Redmond once a year to meet with the product team. It was a lot of really good, in-person conversation with the people that actually make all the products you use. I've met Anders Heilsberg dozens of times because of this. He's the guy that invented C# before there wasn't even a corner. So that, that in-person stuff was really valuable to me. As the MVP program grew, there's a lot less contact directly with Microsoft. Everything these days is, recorded sessions. You get on, Teams meetings with 150 people. So there isn't that much of you just talking to the guy who wrote, this part of the compiler. Or, one of my favorite people at Microsoft is Amanda Silver. And she actually used to be in charge of Visual Basic. And you're like, oh my God, I don't want to use that. Well, she's the person, she worked with Anders Heilsberg when they invented LINQ, Language Integrated Query. She's the person who made it all work in Visual Basic, where he made it work or designed it, architected it in C#. And they were sort of on an even keel there. She later ended up, how years ago, Internet Explorer all of a sudden became very fast at running JavaScript?
Yep.
That was her.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely big.
And she did a real good job. So then I think they had her work on part of Microsoft Office. And now she is the person who's completely in charge of Visual Studio and all the tools.
Design and user interface and all the features.
Yep.
And all.
Yep. And but I spent countless hours just talking to her at these events and trying to understand how they how do you actually build a compiler, and what goes into the thought process, and why can't we have this syntax versus that syntax, and it's fascinating that you can meet people like that, and what it's not as easy to find those people these days because the MVP program has gotten so large. And today, I think there are like 3 people that coordinate all the MVPs for the United States, was like 900 MVPs. So basically, one person is coordinating with 300.
That's pretty big, yeah.
Yeah, and when I started as an MVP, I think one guy had like 70 people. And, you got a phone call every week, and he said, how are things going? And, how can we help you? And it's become a lot less personalized.
Yeah.
It's still a valuable program.
Yeah, it's definitely, you would recommend this if somebody's young who's trying.
Yeah, but there's a very important concept that affects everyone who thinks they want to be an MVP right now. 10 years ago, it was very valuable being an MVP because your job was to go to Microsoft, meet with the product team, and then they would show you ideas on things they might want to put into the products. and we would vote or we would comment and sort of, foster the direction of .NET Framework and C#. That doesn't happen anymore with MVPs because all this stuff is now open source.
Yep.
And since the .NET Framework, Blazor, ASP.NET, C#, everything's on GitHub. Anybody can be involved in that conversation. So the private club where you used to actually work with the product team, that doesn't really happen like it used to.
Yeah, definitely. But I think one thing I liked about being MVP program is then you get to meet other MVPs.
Are you going to tell them how you and I met?
Exactly. Like we live down the road, but we never met here, and we end up meeting in 5 hours flight from here.
Yeah. So Mahesh is always looking for something for free.
Yes.
Does everybody understand that? And I'm a enterprise, a corporate guy. So when I go to a conference like MVP Summit, I always rent a car. That's what consultants do. And I had a car, and when you're staying in Bellevue, it's about a 20-minute drive to the campus in Redmond. So I'm heading out from one of the sessions at the hotel, and I'm like, I'm going to the campus. And this guy is waving at me like, hey, can I get a ride?
So, because in India, you're just always looking for a ride, hitchhiking, okay?
Yeah, and he thought I was going to actually be on one of those three-wheel motorcycle things and going in and out of traffic and not paying attention to traffic signals. That's scary, but but we drove to the campus in Redmond, and we started talking. It's like, well, where are you from? It's like Philadelphia. It's like, so am I. It's like, how about that? And that's when I found out he ran CSharpCorner and that he had written a book on C#. And then, he found out what I ran, and we've been friends ever since.
Yep, that's it. That's how it happens. So that's the key part is everybody who is looking to get into Microsoft MVP program. Few things: you have to be a community guy. You have to contribute to the community, either speaking, writing, or in different ways. And then definitely you get free software. Still get some, but most of it is already open source now. So whatever way you get, yeah.
Do we have time for 2 quick stories? I love
yes,
that.
Yeah, we can extend that. I mean, we have 2 minutes, but we can extend.
I'll do them real quick.
Watching.
Okay,
yeah.
First story. This was around 1980. I was part of the Philadelphia Computer Society. As I explained earlier, I was just anointed one of the leaders of that group. And we ran a user group, and we had a panel discussion that I helped moderate. And the people in the panel were the people who invented ENIAC, because it happened in Philadelphia. ENIAC, if the rest of you don't know history, was the first computer that was commercially used. And it was developed in the late 40s. So these people would have been in their 60s or 70s, and it was fascinating talking to them. It's like, well, how many vacuum tubes did you have to put in to make this thing? It was really cool. The other good story I have is through the community, I ended up getting a job at a local company that sold computer products, and they sold a mail order. And back in the day, before there was the internet, they used to have this thing. They used to have these magazines that you bought. And there was a magazine called Byte Magazine, BYTE. And I swear to God, the thing used to be an inch thick every month. That's how much people wanted to read about computers. And in those magazines, there were pages and pages offering motherboards and memory chips and things like that. And I joined a company that used to sell those products, and we used to have those ads. I used to make the ads. And part of my job was to call up the competitors in the magazine to find out what they were selling and how much they were selling it for. And I used to call this one guy in his dormitory in Texas. And he was like starting this business and he was selling computer products out of his dorm room. And his name was Michael Dell.
Oh, wow.
And I wish I would have asked him for a job back then.
Yes, you'll say, can I come work for you? That would have been great.
But you can imagine, like 5 years later, it's like, oh my God, that's the guy I used to talk to like once a week. And look where he ended up.
Wow. And we just learned today you also are doing sales. So that's definitely helps in communication as well.
Yep.
Yeah. I think, more and more you watch, if you can sell things, you can definitely sell yourself.
Yep. All right. Well,
All
this was fun.
So we want to take a couple of questions. There's a bunch of questions. Let's take a couple of questions. So I don't want to disappoint people. So I want to take this question. Let's take some of these related .NET 6. And so there's two questions. We can combine both. What is your expectations from .NET 6? I mean, what are probably new things coming out? And the other one is, what will you suggest, Blazor with .NET Core 3 or .NET 5? So we can kind of combine these questions.
All right. Well, just forget about .NET Core 3. .NET 5, a huge improvement over .NET Core 3. So figure out how to migrate all your stuff sooner than later. You're going to have better performance. You have a lot more functionality. They've added syntax that is useful. So I would definitely go in that direction. I do know what's going to be in .NET 6. I cannot tell you. So that's the answer to the other one.
So there's one interesting question here too on Excel. And I know this is funny. What do you use to export data to Excel? I guess from your grids.
Well, so I've always been a big fan of third-party products. I actually got hired by Infragistics for a little over a year to consult for them. I've used Component One. I've used a bunch of them. Lately, I'm using Telerik, and I really like the style, the way the company works, the way they communicate and present their things. So I use the Telerik Blazor components, and they do an excellent job now. When they first came out with them about a year and a half ago, 2 years, they didn't do Excel export. And they had a library. You had to like code it yourself. And I did because it was that important to my client. But since then, I've dropped all that code and I just use their built-in export functionality. And it is just painless.
That's great.
So for me to export a grid that honors all the filtering, sorting, the column selections, and all that stuff, basically is maybe 2 lines of markup, not C# code, HTML markup.
HTML.
Yep.
Wow, that's great. That's great. So yeah, we're almost done. I mean, we are over time anyway, but a couple of things I want to ask you personally. So, once you are fully vaccinated, 2 shots in, what is the first thing you're going to do?
Probably the same thing I do now. Work all
Okay, so that's great.
Well, we used to, our family, we used to enjoy traveling a fair amount, and we've stopped that. So I think we do have a couple trips planned later in the year. And I'm hoping that we can go on those trips. One is to St. Thomas. I like the Caribbean islands, and one is Costa Rica. So I want to go chase monkeys through the jungle.
Both sounds fun.
But I do some local, some travel around the United States as well too. But yeah, getting back to travel would be fun. The one thing that really bothers me, my kids both got married in the last 2 years, and I haven't seen nearly as much of them as normal because of the fear of COVID. So we sort of keep our distance. So I'm hoping that, by midsummer we can have family gatherings some more. And I don't expect to be doing in-person user group meetings probably until 2022. I think people are going to be really hesitant to organize those, let alone, I did speak at the CSharpCorner conference, and I saw how many people that Mahesh can squeeze into one ballroom.
Yep.
You better not be doing that this year.
Hopefully not. I think, let's see. Probably not. But what I'm thinking is, and this is how I'm announced, letting you know, I think we will do a in-person speakers only conference.
That's an interesting idea. So make it like a studio. Make a
like Atlantic
studio.
City. Maybe in Atlantic City we will do here. You and I will go just for once everybody's vaccinated. I think by June we are hoping almost everybody will be vaccinated. So maybe we can go to Atlantic City for a few days, take days off, couple of days, and do like a nice room setups and all, and just stream from there. But as speakers, we can go out and eat and have a couple of drinks and all that. I think that's kind of biggest thing.
I'd be happy to work with you on that. I have some ideas right away that that might help with that. So, that's a good idea.
All right, let's talk on that. I'll catch up with you on the this next. I want to meet also. I think my son is still. We got him tested. He's still positive. He didn't. He's not negative yet. But so let's give him one more week.
But is he working on his defense?
Well, this year he's been really good at defense, so I'm impressed.
Every picture you show me, he's shooting. There's more to basketball than shooting.
Yeah, so you have to watch his full game. He's pretty good at defense. Yeah. All right, Bill, it's been fun. This was great. Definitely a great conversation. We learned a lot, and I hope our audience learned a lot from this, about community, about MVP, about running user groups. Communication. The most important part of success in making a lot of money is communication.
Yep.
Any last word you want to tell our audience before we go?
Get vaccinated.
All right, guys. Yep. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And I will see you next week, same time, 12 noon, with more fun.
All right. Thanks much.